Hello F1 fans! Welcome back to the F1 Masters podcast brought to you by AUBG Daily. As usual, you're with myself, Harry, David and Vasco, and in this episode, we're going to discuss the 2025 Azerbaijan Grand Prix weekend. And we can start off with practice.
Yeah, practice, there was some incidents, definitely. We saw actually a lot of drivers hitting the walls. Lando Norris, the wall quite hard as well. Even Oscar Piastri, both McLarens were struggling quite a lot, it felt like. And pretty much everyone, I don't know why. There was not like anything different to the Baku circuit, but a lot of mistakes, and we'll definitely get onto that in qualifying. But yeah, generally we had a mix at the front. We saw McLaren, we saw Ferrari, we even saw Red Bull. So qualifying was shaping up to be somewhat interesting.
Practice sessions couldn't have prepared us for what happened during the qualifying session at points, because it has been longer than 2 hours, I think, the whole quali session. And I felt like most of the drivers, like 90% of the grid, have just forgotten how to drive in Baku. And we had 6 red flags, which is crazy. And we saw some really interesting things with, first of all, Alex Albon, who decided just to hit the wall. And after that, it was as if everybody decided to follow his example. And even some of the best drivers, they weren't ensured that this thing won't happen to them.
After Alex Albon, it was Nico Hülkenberg who did next. He just couldn't turn in time. And another red flag was brought. And after that, Alpine decided to synchronize themselves. At first, Pierre Gasly went into the runoff area, and seconds after that, Franco Colapinto crashed heavily into the wall. I don't know, like, this was very impressive. When I saw that they did it, like, almost at the same time, I was just mind blown. I don't know how they do that.
It is like, do you remember this meme with both Haas cars like spinning out of the circuit, like at the same level? That felt like that. Also, Ole Berman, he also touched the wall. Hamilton with one of the worst of his qualifying during the season so far, P12, and he was like, we made some changes to the settings, to the car, and we hoped for better. And again, P12, that is really bad. And at the beginning of Q3, we saw like only a few raindrops, and 3 people managed to make laps. I think that was Sainz, Lawson, and was it Hadjar?
Yeah.
And Hadjar, and after that, Oscar Piastri was like 2-3 seconds or something like that from completing his lap. And the red flags. And that was Charles Leclerc with a crash. And after that, the qualifying session was stopped. Red flag, and it started raining actually much more than the beginning of the quali session. And I was thinking like, oh, Sainz and Lawson, they would be up front, but after that it stopped. It was not that heavy. And then probably the most insane part of the qualifying session happened.
Oscar Piastri in the wall, championship leader, a disaster trying to take turn 4, right? Yeah. Turn 4. And yeah, he was out as well with Leclerc in Q3. And we had another red flag. And after that, we basically had a 1-lap shootout to determine who was going to get pole. And it was pretty much looking like it was going to be Norris or Verstappen. But then Lando Norris also hit the wall. He didn't DNF, but he hit the wall, and that seriously hindered his lap. And he ended up down the order, whereas Max Verstappen got a clean lap in and comfortably took pole position. And Sainz and Lawson, though, they managed to stay up there, managed to stay second and third. Fantastic qualifying for them. It was really total chaos to the grid, but very well done from them. Kimi Antonelli as well did really well in P4 along with George Russell. And Yuki Tsunoda also 6th place. I believe this is his highest qualifying ever in a Red Bull, so it was also quite impressive.
It was, in general, that was Yuki's best race in Red Bull, I think.
Yeah, definitely. No question there. And we're moving on to the race recap now. And first off, the podium finishers were Max Verstappen in 1st place, George Russell in 2nd place, and Carlos Sainz managed to get the P3. We can comment on the race start because it was quite interesting there.
Oscar Piastri, I think in general, had like the worst race I've ever seen in my life, or one of the worst races I've ever seen in my life. Apart from qualifying where he crashed it, makes a false start, then he gets the car into anti-stall and everyone overtakes him, and then just forgets how to drive. I feel like makes one of the most like basic errors you could see, just cold tires, just loses control of the car and just into the wall. In lap 1, very odd, considering how consistent he's been throughout this year. Very good driving throughout the year. But this weekend, it was like he just switched off like completely. It was terrible, absolutely terrible.
And he also compromised Fernando Alonso's start, because when Alonso saw that Oscar moved the car, he also jumped the start and he got a penalty for that. But Oscar was he even did the mistake at the same corner as in qualifying, right? I think it was turn 4 again. So, I'm confused.
it was a different corner. It was further on.
I'm not sure. I think it was the same, but it may have been further. Again, it was in the first lap, and it was a really strange mistake from the guy that, let's say, 2-3 races ago was flawless. And he looked like not only a championship contender, he looked like the favorite for the championship crown. But let's comment on, we'll go back to the start. Let's comment on Lando Norris and his race, because when your main contender for the title from your team crashes and does horrendous race, you have to capitalize on that. And what we saw from Lando, it was on only 6 points, which if he was on the podium, then it's game on. It's still game on, because we don't know what is going to happen till the end of the season, but Lando didn't manage to get as close as I imagined he would like to be to Oscar after this race.
In general, McLaren had no pace, I felt like, this weekend, but even still, I don't know, he got overtaken by Charles Leclerc on the safety car restart. Then he re-overtook him, but couldn't get past Tsunoda or Lawson. I mean, he should have been up there, challenging Sainz for the podium, and he didn't do it. I mean, he got some points in the end, but when your championship rival, as you said, is out of the race, you got to get a lot more. But I don't know, after this weekend, these McLaren drivers, they're really starting to annoy me. I feel like neither one of them deserves this championship at this point. It's like they're trying to lose. I don't know why. I don't know. It's just, they need to lock in. I don't really know what they're doing. They keep just messing up, making dumb mistakes, and the team is getting involved. And this is one of the most superficial championship fights I've ever seen in my life.
I just thought of something really funny. Imagine that Zach Brown, after all the troubles, all the team orders, the collision and all that stuff, he decided to become a parent and make Lando and Oscar like siblings. They're like, oh, when you don't know how to share something, both of you won't have it. And right now McLaren are deliberately trying to lose the championship. Just imagine the scenario. No, but seriously, poor weekend for Lando, poor weekend for McLaren. That was their worst weekend by far since the beginning of the season. So I don't know if this is a sign of some cracks in the team, or this is only one-off and the next race we're going to see double McLaren win.
And they could have won the Constructors this weekend as well if they had a fairly normal weekend. They needed to outscore Ferrari by 9 points, and somehow they failed to do this.
Both Ferrari cars were behind Lando, and they had the same points, actually, at the end of the weekend. Ferrari managed to score 6, and Lando managed to score 6. So, actually, really poor weekend for both Ferrari and McLaren. But I feel like every week when we talk about that is just oh, poor weekend for Ferrari.
We're getting used to it, but as you were talking about the championship fight, we have to mention that actually Max Verstappen we can say he's kind of back in the championship fight, because he's not that far off. I mean, with the last 2 races, he has gotten back, even though everybody was, saying, oh no, he doesn't stand a chance, but he's actually there.
But even he said after the summer break, no, I'm not involved in the title race, just simply because of the car, because of the difference between us and McLaren. And right now it is only 44 points with 8 races to go.
That's still Norris though.
Yes, something like that. 44 points and 69 points to Piastri, which is not he cannot manage to do that, but it's just the McLaren cars are still so much faster, or at least that's what it looked like throughout the whole season. So we'll see what is going to happen, but for now I don't think that Verstappen is still a real contender, but his only job is to do the best that he can with that car, and the rest it would be up to McLaren, because everything is in their hands actually.
I think Max Verstappen is probably, like, he's obviously the most informed driver at the moment, but he lost too many points at the start of the season, in my opinion, like, through his fault, and he could have been much closer had that not happened. But very impressive. Also, interesting stat that he has more pole positions than both McLaren drivers this season, which is highly impressive, which I've generally not considered his qualifying to be his strongest suit, but been very, very good this year, so very impressed with Max Verstappen. Also, very impressive weekend from Mercedes, who had just a fantastic race, fantastic strategy, great pace. George Russell, P2, obviously did the usual, aka nothing, and got a podium. But we've come to expect that George Russell, Mr. Consistency, and Kimi Antonelli actually finally putting in a good performance after a huge run of terrible races. But good to see that he finally managed to get a strong result with P4 in the end. And Mercedes jumped Ferrari in the constructor standings as a result. So how do we think about the championship battle between the two for second?
Well, as it stands right now, I would favor Mercedes because Kimi is a bit volatile, but I think what George has done throughout the whole season actually is much better than the combined efforts of both Leclerc and Hamilton, and the Mercedes car, most importantly, is looking stronger than Ferrari right now. So that is why if I have to pick, I would have to pick Mercedes to edge Ferrari at the end of the season.
And what about Red Bull? Do they have a chance for second place? Because they're also quite close.
They're super close, like Mercedes 290, 286 Ferrari, and Red Bull 272. And if Max Verstappen continues to drag this team alone, then no. But if we see more performances like this from Yuki, and nobody's asking him for podiums, we ask him for consistent P6, P5, P7, something like that. If he manages to get these points, then Red Bull have an actual chance for second place in constructors. But it is really important to see what Yuki is going to do. This is actually important. I would put that as an addition, but this is actually super important for him because as it stands right now, Hadjar is going to be the second driver in Red Bull next season, and it would be really hard for him to find a seat in F1. And if he doesn't perform till the end of the season, then that would become like mission impossible because there are a few spots. Probably the best opportunity probably for him is Alpine, the second seat at Alpine. But if he doesn't perform, then they're definitely going to look for somebody else.
Yeah, I can also see him potentially not being in F1 for 1 year, and then after Fernando Alonso retires, go into that Aston Martin with the Honda engines. I think it would be a viable way for him. But either way, still great performance from Yuki finally. Good to see that he managed to keep Norris, Leclerc, Hamilton behind him. A good defense, had good pace, the strategy worked well, and yeah, as a result, Red Bull ended up scoring the most points this weekend thanks to obviously Max Verstappen, but also he actually contributed, so very important for him and for Red Bull. Another thing we haven't really talked about Carlos Sainz.
And for the two of you, for me, Mercedes are winning second place for the two of you.
I think Ferrari will win it because I think Leclerc and Hamilton are generally more consistent, and also the Mercedes is not consistent. I feel like one race they're nowhere, one race they're really good, so I think that's also a factor.
For me, Mercedes will be second because we all know how consistent George Russell is, and if Kimi Antonelli can also pick up the pace just like he did in Baku, then they actually can do it. And we can go back to the race. First of all, I want to mention the Hülkenberg and Ocon collision in the first lap, which was right after Piastri crashed, I think. And then there was a safety car. And after the restart, Antonelli and Russell had a scary moment in turn one. They almost collided. I was quite scared to see them because they were really close. They didn't leave each other that much space, but it was fine because they didn't crash.
I just forgot. I forgot these things even happened during the race. It was so early on in the beginning, but yeah, very close moment. But Russell, and he fell behind Tsunoda, and then he re-overtook him, and great strategy, amazing strategy. Got ahead of Antonelli and Sainz just through strategy. Great pace. Very impressed with George Russell, and yeah, Charles Leclerc. He also overtook Lando Norris, and I was kind of surprised. I was actually kind of impressed with Ferrari's pace in the beginning, but Leclerc, and he made his pit stop and then could not overtake Liam Lawson to save his life. And apparently after the race, he said there was some kind of ERS issue with his car, which amazing things once again going on with his machinery.
Typical Ferrari stuff.
Yeah. Also, we had Alex Albon just spin Franco Colapinto for no reason whatsoever. Like, it was quite a clumsy attempt at an overtake. So, yeah, quite a disappointing weekend for Alex Albon considering where his teammate was. The first weekend all year that Alex Albon has been totally dominated by Carlos Sainz. And, yeah, moving further on, we had McLaren slow stop for Lando Norris, which is becoming a little bit of a trend in the last few races.
Which is a bit strange because at the beginning of the season, McLaren were looking so sharp. They were the only team that was consistently doing 2.1, 2.2 seconds pit stops, while the rest of the teams were like 2.5, 2.7, like that. And there was just a massive drop off actually in the past few races, and especially with Lando. Also, just to mention something, was it 2 safety cars during the race?
No, it was just the first one after Piastri's crash.
I think and they were yellow flags for like a very brief moment.
It was for the Colapinto spin, but he rejoined.
I was really surprised after the session that we had in the quali. I really expected like 3-4 red flags as it started, but yeah, drivers were much more careful after that. And let's move to Liam Lawson actually, because that was pretty impressive for him, because he's also one of the drivers that we don't really know where he's going to be the next season, and with performances like this he can secure a spot in another team, or at least be a viable candidate.
I think he has proven himself like on multiple occasions, especially in the last few races. He's been very good, like really in the points. He has 30 points to Hadjar's 39. It's not really a big difference. He's been racking up points. I've honestly been really impressed by him, and I think he's deserved at the bare minimum to stay in Racing Bulls. And I think he will most likely, because I don't really see anyone from F2. I know they like Arvid Lindblad, but...
Well, it is most probably going to be Lindblad, but who is going to be the second guy? It is most probably
if Hadjar moves to Red Bull, then definitely Lawson will have to stay, because they won't have a second driver. And yeah, I think he deserves it.
Tsunoda is not going to go back to RB, I think.
No, he's not.
Yeah. Okay, so I think, that's our prediction. Let's say Lawson and Lindblad.
Yeah, even though I think Lindblad has been kind of disappointing this year in F2, but he's still a Red Bull Junior,
we're waiting for Nikovatsov in that second RB seat in like 2-3 years.
And as you mentioned, Lawson and Tsunoda, both of them just created a train. Like towards the end of the race, they were just leading like 5th and 6th place, and behind them were like Lando Norris, the 2 Ferraris, Isaac Hadjar. It was like a truly train, but in Baku and in 2025, it was funny.
But no one overtook them, so it was still very well done from them. Honestly, I can't really fault anyone for this great driving. It was great defense. Tsunoda actually had really good defense on Leclerc, I believe. So I was very impressed by them. So well-deserved result for them. And Carlos Sainz, we actually have not really talked about Carlos Sainz's race. From start to finish, really just seemed like he was in cruise control. I mean, obviously George Russell jumped him through strategy, but I don't think he particularly cared. Still finished on the podium comfortably. It wasn't really under threat at all during the whole race. Huge result for Carlos Sainz, who's been having such an underwhelming season, and Alex Albon has been dominating him in the points. But Carlos Sainz ends up getting a podium, also ironically before Lewis Hamilton did in a Ferrari. But incredibly important results for Carlos Sainz, in my opinion.
I told you last week when we were discussing, like when we had the summary recap, that things are going to be fine for Carlos Sainz, and he was pretty fast to be like, yeah, they're going to be. I really hope that next season Williams are going to have even better car, because it feels natural for Williams to be at the top of the field, and I feel like Sainz is feeling so much more comfortable at the top of the field, fighting for these places on the podium in top 5 to have a great car for qualifying. He doesn't feel as secure in the middle of the field. And it has been proven like on a couple of occasions throughout this season. But if you give Sainz a really good car, then he's going to deliver, definitely.
Speaking of Sainz, we can move on to our highlights of the weekend. And David and I can both agree that the Sainz podium was our highlight. And Vasco, what was yours?
Definitely also the Sainz podium, really impressive. The qualifying session was a really big highlight because 6 red flags, that was crazy. But for me it is Verstappen's Grand Slam because he was pretty impressive throughout the whole weekend. His qualifying lap was like almost half a second faster than Sainz's, who was second. And throughout the race, there wasn't a moment throughout the race that I was thinking, oh, Verstappen may lose this position. The strategy was great. Everything was just going super fine for Verstappen, and that I think it's only natural that the talks about him probably having at least a little bit of a chance for the title are absolutely reasonable at that point. I don't think it is going to happen, but with performances like this, I feel like, yeah, there is at least the tiniest bit of chance.
Our next rubric is the surprising disappointment of the weekend. And I'll start off by saying that Kimi Antonelli really surprised me in a positive way. He had a great weekend. He was P4 in both qualifying and the race, which is quite impressive for him. I mean, considering his poor run of form. And I think we can all agree that Oscar Piastri was a disappointment this weekend. Horrible qualifying and even a worse race. So, yeah, I mean, not expected from a championship leader.
Yeah, as I said like earlier, one of the worst race performances I've ever seen in my life. And yeah, championship leader doing this is absolutely unacceptable. So we'll see how he bounces back from this, but the race to forget for him. My surprise is Yuki Tsunoda. I've not seen this from him all season, at least since he's been in the Red Bull. And finally, he actually drove well, good pace, and scored points, which is basically the job he needs to be doing every single race. But he finally did it for once.
My surprise is Liam Lawson, but absolutely viable options are also Kimi, Yuki, Sainz. Really impressive weekends from all of them. And my disappointment, once again, Oscar Piastri, but I would add Lando Norris. I would add McLaren in general, because as I said, their worst weekend since the beginning of the season. And Oscar, horrendous performance. Qualifying, race, 2 crashes, not what you want to see from the primary title contender. And Lando, he just didn't capitalize on that, and he was just, his pace was nowhere to be seen.
And we'll finish off by looking at our predictions for this race and the ones we'll make for Singapore. So my prediction for this race was Carlos Sainz scores the best result of the season, and I actually managed to be correct. I'm quite satisfied. I didn't expect such a good result from him. And my predictions for Singapore, the first one is that 3 cars will be out on lap 1, which reminds me of the 2018 race, which was chaos at the start. And the second one is that Ollie Behrman will capitalize and get some points.
My prediction from last time was Lando Norris to not finish on the podium. I got it right. I'll take that. And my predictions for Singapore are Lewis Hamilton podium. At this rate, everyone's getting first podiums. It's only time. It's finally time for Lewis Hamilton to get on the podium. And my other prediction is 2 safety cars during the race. It's Singapore. We know it's always chaos. So yeah, fingers crossed.
My prediction from last week, Leclerc win. I would never, ever predict anything about Ferrari, like ever again.
I pray for times like this.
Yeah, just Leclerc was nowhere throughout the whole weekend. Just horrendous. So my predictions would be for McLaren this time. So I hope that would work for them. My prediction is 1-2 in quali, back to basics with them. But my second prediction is that at the beginning, in the first few laps of the race, Wando and Oscar would crash, and that would make the championship so interesting, and that would make the whole race like really interesting. So I actually hope to see like a great show in Singapore, because that is one of the tracks that is, I personally like it, and I hope that we'll see some kind of a show. I don't know, we'll see Ollie Behrman winning there. I don't know, some crazy kind.
Well, Flavio will be at the race, so Crash Gate is still a possibility.
Yes, Fernando.
So this is all for today from us. We're looking forward to the next episode. Till then, like, subscribe and follow us on AUBG Daily on Instagram and Facebook, and stay tuned for more of our content. Thank you, and remember,
if you no longer go for a gap that exists,
you're no longer a racing driver.